Without further ado, Jemma Thompson.
Hi. Okay, first of all I'm going to apologise if I fall over. I'm used to having something to lean on or a desk to sit behind, so I'm going to try and stand very still and not do anything dramatic. Okay, so as mentioned, I teach English to asylum seekers and refugees. It's not just English though. We're looking at people who have come from a world that we can't imagine here. I used to wander around going, UK, we've got this vile weather and corrupt politicians. Do you know, that is absolutely nothing. I lost my father to cancer 7 years ago, and round about that time, my children became old enough for me to go back into work. And my first job was teaching a group of people from Syria and Pakistan. Now, I had a conversation with a man who said to me, you're very lucky here because you have gas and electricity all the time. And I was like, oh yeah, you take that for granted. And the NHS. Now, people have different opinions on politics, etc. But when I think back to my father and the treatment he went through, he never had to choose whether he had to pay for his treatment or make sure there was enough money left over for my family to live on. That's just one of the really small struggles that these people have come from. Disease, that's something that everybody has in every country. People in Sudan have huge amounts of children, which we kind of like, how many brothers and sisters? I've got 5 brothers and 7 sisters. The mortality rate of children is massive over there. So when you talk to these people and you say to them, what do you think of the UK? Thinking, oh, crappy UK. And they're like, it's amazing. There's so much support, there's so much help, there is such a safe and wonderful place. I think, this isn't the UK I grew up in. But they're seeing it from a completely different perspective. They're seeing it as somewhere that is safe, where we have got help if we, 1, know how to reach out for it, and 2, if we feel that we can. And that's I think where we have one of the biggest stumbling blocks. It's when you feel that you can actually reach out. Because that's not easy, and that's something that every one of you and myself have probably found themselves in a position of, where you do need some kind of help. Mental health is not something that we talk about. It's not something that is polite, it's not something that's cheery. We live in the Western civilization, we live in a world where we gloss over everything that is not pretty. We might watch a bit of a sad film, or we might watch something a bit kind of like Reservoir Dogsy, and that's about as close as most of us come to that kind of thing. Even when it comes down to life and death. Babies this side of the world are usually born in a hospital. Now we're making a move towards more home births, towards people hiring a doula instead of going to the hospital and having a traditional midwife and doctor. But we don't really get our hands dirty with life and death. We're not all sat outside somebody's house listening to the screams. It's all shut up. It's all, a woman's fat and then all of a sudden, there comes a baby. And it's very unmessy. The same with death. The people we love and we lose, they're just gone. They go to the morticians, they go to the funeral directors. They're all prettied up by the time we see them. So we never have to face death head on if we're lucky. Obviously, if you're not lucky, you do. But we don't sit with our dying. We don't sing them on their way like they do in so many tribes in Africa. And that has left us a little bit sterile and a little bit unable to cope with some of the things that we come up against. And so we layer over it. We get busy with everything else. It's not okay to mourn. You don't see a British person really tearing their hair out, hollering like the Jews do at the Wailing Wall. It's not polite. It's not British. And this is something that we need to change. This is something where we need to stop apologising for being not okay. Some interesting statistics that I learned, as well as teaching English, I teach domestic violence awareness and a bunch of other stuff. But the statistics in the UK at the moment are that 1 in 3 women are affected by domestic violence. What most people don't know is that actually 1 in 5 men are also affected by domestic violence. Are those statistics actual? We don't know, because we don't know how many people are not talking up, because it's not particularly masculine to go somewhere and say, hey, you know, my wife beats the Jesus out of me. What do we do about it? We can be open, and we can talk about our experiences, because that is the best way to get other people to open up. Okay? Most people are not just going to hand you their issues on a plate. And to be honest, you're not equipped to deal with most people's issues. There are a lot of things out there that somebody might tell you and you're like, whoa, that's too big for me, you need to go and speak to somebody. But being a first point of contact, that's what we do when we're teaching, that's what we do with a friend. It's just being there and saying, I'm here and I'm open and I'm ready to listen to you. And whether that is for somebody to really spill their guts, or whether it's for somebody to just say, look, I've got a bit of a situation, and for you to be aware. And when you're aware, then you can look out for little signs. I assume most of you have seen the news today about our Keith. I think that's fairly coincidental that's happened today, and gives us quite the fact that somebody who is the head man of the Prodigy, a fairly big band who looks like he can really deal with pretty much anything, today, well, over the weekend, took his own life. So it's not the first time that we've seen this in the media. Robin Williams, so many people, and you know, these are people who everybody's seen being happy, who everybody said, well, they can't have the same problems as normal people because they've got all the money and they've got all the support. Depression is isolating. Pain is isolating. Whether it's some kind of chronic pain illness that people might have, fibromyalgia, ME, Ehlers-Danlos, any of these things that you can't see, or whether it's some kind of mental or emotional pain. It is a private thing, and it isolates you. It isolates you from the other people around you, because nobody wants to be the moaning person going blah, 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 blah. And it isolates you from being able to see a way out, you know, that is not the way out. So what else have I got to say about refugees? Not really very much, apart from looking at things from a different perspective can make a massive, massive difference. I'm going to go back to when I lost my father, because I was hugely, hugely privileged. By the time I was 30 years old, I still had all 4 of my grandparents still alive. I'd never encountered loss. I'd never really looked that in the eye. Then when I was 30, my father was diagnosed with It took him until probably his last year to actually go to a doctor's who said, okay, you are suffering depression. This was before he even knew he had cancer. But watching him go through a mental process of seeing life suddenly falling into perspective, of being 57 years old, 67 years old, I just knocked another 10 years off his life lesson, but being 67 years old and then suddenly seeing things from a different perspective, and it's too late, you know? Everything was always, when I retire, when I do this, I'm going to move here to be happy, I'm going to do that. Just screw that. Because all of these things that he was planning on doing, they never got done. I am the kind of person who has always been terrified of her own shadow, okay? I love singing. Do I sing in front of people? On pain of death. But I've made myself do that since my father died. Driving on the motorway. I hated driving on the motorway, it scared the bejesus out of me. But I had to travel 200 miles every time I wanted to go and visit my family when my dad was sick, so I learned to do it. And my message there is that you actually have no idea what you're capable of until you try. There is no limit. I recently went to see the Circus of Horrors. I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's brilliant if you have. There's a gentleman who performs in there who has no legs, and he's an acrobat. And when I say an acrobat, I mean he is a serious acrobat. He can do the most phenomenal things. I have no idea how long I have left speaking because the magic thing that has disappeared. 5 minutes. Okay. Is that okay? Can you bear me for another 5 minutes? Okay. That has completely lost my train of thought. Perspectives. Blah 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 blah. Circus of Horrors. See it. Anyway. There's a man born with no legs, and now he's working in a circus along with perfectly able-bodied acrobats. I wonder how many people told this man when he was younger that his disability was going to stop him from being able to do what he wanted to do. For the last 5 minutes, I'm going to give you a bizarre bit of information about myself, but it is going to put some of the things I say into perspective, as well as teaching English. A slight other part of my life is that I am a priestess. Part of what I do there is working with people at the beginning and at the end of their life. And to see what goes through people's heads, to see what we would call the mysteries of life at both ends, is a real eye-opener. These things that we shush up, when you're faced with them, really make you see things in a different way. So, like I said, it's so easy to see the things that are out there in front of us, but we do shush about death, we do shush about birth, we shush about all of the messy stuff. And what I really want to challenge you with is to be brave, is to go there. The things that we shouldn't talk about, the things that people kind of shy away from. Once you've broken through those, they are so much less scary than you think that they are. There is a whole world of mysteries that are just not dealt with by this culture, by the world that we're growing up in, where people have got their face in their phones. We're really, really losing a deeper connection. You might have heard people talking about earthing. It's suddenly become quite popular over the last few years, where people are kicking off their shoes and sticking their toes in the mud. It may sound like a really dull thing. The scientists are now proving that the ions in the soil, negative ions, are actually very, very beneficial for you health-wise. The seaside, the mountains are full of negative ions. There's also, if you find you go down there for the day, you feel different. You feel a little bit like, ooh. And that's for a really good reason, that science is finally catching up with the rest of the mystical world to say. So there are physical things that we can do to reconnect with this massive disconnect that's going on. Try taking your shoes off, try getting out there in the park. I suffer depression, which is an ongoing on and off thing, like a lot of people do. I don't go around saying I have depression. I might not manifest it in the same way as some people do. I can tell you now, my house is an absolute pigsty. My children are clean, they're dressed, I go to work every day. I don't manifest it by sitting in my house rotting, but what I do is I procrastinate. I will leave my dishes for 5 days until I literally have not a single dish in the world, and I will get to the point where there is so much going on that I will just do nothing. I will sit there with a cup of coffee and I will chain smoke, and I have to really shake myself out of that. And it's very rare that I will tell my friends that I'm going through that. People who know me well will be like, Jem, come on, get your ass out, we're going to the park, or we're going to go to the beach for the day. Do that to your friends, because you can't always see what's going on with people. But if you see somebody pulling into themselves, give them space, but also give them a chance to get out there, because not everybody is going to say to you, I need to get out, I need to get out of these four walls. If you see somebody who is overwhelmed by too much work, by too much rubbish, by too much anything, get in there and Kim and Aggie their house with them, okay? Sometimes you have to do a bit of a hostile takeover. We can't be polite all the time. Sometimes you have to turn around to your friends and say, do you know what, I'm stepping in now. Clean yourself up, brush your teeth, because I'll thank you for it.